Well, last week we talked about starting seeds indoors, and this week we wanted to give you kind of a little worksheet so that you could schedule your seed starting so that you have your plants ready to go out into the garden early this next spring. Well, it's really pretty easy. The only supplies that you need are a worksheet, also an Oklahoma garden planning guide would be handy, and one of next year's calendars. Now, what you need to put on your worksheet is basically the frost-free date, and we're going to use the 15th of April just as a good median. Now, if you're in the northern part of the state, it might be later than that. In the southern part of the state, it might be earlier. So find your own frost-free date for your area. The other thing that you want information on is the number of weeks that you can set your crop out. Now, broccoli, you can set it out 4 weeks before the frost-free day. So that's what we're doing here. Then we have our set-out date, which we've calculated here to be March 18th. You also want to have the number of weeks that the transplant needs to be grown indoors before it can be set out. Now, for broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and kale, that's anywhere from 5 to 7 weeks. So we're going to use 6 weeks as a good middle number here. And then our last column here is the sowing date, and that's the date that we need to sow. Now, we'll run through this in the case of broccoli. On April 15th, we back up 4 weeks from that. That's the number of weeks before that date that you can set it out. And we've got the 18th of March. Now, we need to grow that transplant for 6 weeks before we set it out, and that gives us February 6th. Now, in the case of cabbage, again, we're starting with the 15th. Now, we can actually set this out 5 weeks before the frost-free date. So that backs us up even another week to the 11th. Again, we want to grow that indoors for about 6 weeks. That puts us sowing our cabbage on January, and I believe on my calendar, it's January 28th. So that's how you do that. Now, these are all cool season crops. In the case of our warm season crops, such as tomato, the number here would be, we would want to set that out on 0. So we wouldn't be subtracting any, and we wouldn't be adding any. Now, if you have a cold frame or walls of water and you're actually going to set your tomatoes out before the frost-free date, then you actually could subtract from here, and that would be you would calculate when you'd need to sow those tomatoes. And you can see right here with the cabbage that you're going to be wanting to sow that seed on January 28th. So it really is time to be getting that seed ordered. Now, there's another tool I mentioned that can help you with this, the Oklahoma Garden Planning Guide. Now, in that, it actually gives you the set out dates. So you could start in this column. You wouldn't even have to worry about these two columns. Start in this column and figure how much time it needs to grow indoors before you can set it out. So you could just start your worksheet from here if you have the set out date information. Now, the places that you can gather this information, the Oklahoma Garden Planning Guide is good. Also, seed packets and seed catalogs many times will tell you how long a transplant needs to grow before you can put it outside. So you can gather all this information and then set up a worksheet, work on that, and you'll know when you need to sow those seeds so that you can get your garden in early this spring and get a good crop.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.